Welcome to the Hope, Health, and Healing Podcast. I am Michelle Hannah Fields, and I am your host for episode 39, which is part 2 of a 2-part series with Chuck Northington and Sherry Griffith. We continue our conversation today where Chuck and Sherry share what their journey of grief has looked like, how they've navigated through the hard days, what this season has looked like for them, and how they have really depended on the Lord for peace, comfort, and strength. They also share that in this chapter 2 season of their life, how God is really blessing their relationship. So sit back, relax with your favorite cup of coffee or beverage of your choice, and let Chuck and Sherry continue to inspire you today.
Burden. Sherry, talk about your journey and kind of what you went through and where you saw God just really, His presence being real to you.
Yeah. Actually, when I was in my early 40s, we were in Indiana, and I was helping facilitate a Bible study, and it was Not a Fan by Kyle Idleman. Mm-hmm. And, here I thought I was just helping, be a facilitator, and I didn't realize that this was like a impactful appointment that I would have mm-hmm. with the Lord myself. Mm-hmm. And it really caused me to reassess everything and realizing that, all my life I'd been a fan and a cheerleader for church and for God but I realized that I really needed a deeper relationship. More of a hunger than I had. Mm-hmm. I knew about him, I'd learned about him, I loved to share about him, but there was just something there that I had not completely let go. It seemed like I didn't have the intimacy that I really needed with him, and so it was a reset. It really was, and I walked through some deeper study. I reached out to some women and just had them to pray with me and walk with me through just some things that I was going through, and it was a wonderful moment. I had no idea that it was really it was the Lord grounding me deeper, mm-hmm. Helping me to be more on a firm, solid, deeply rooted foundation, because mm-hmm. I had no idea what was ahead. No idea. I had my plans. Chuck G and I had our plans of how our whole life would work out. We would never retire. We're going to do ministry the rest of our lives, till the Lord takes us. Mm-hmm. And so I said that, God had brought us full circle, brought us back to Columbus. It's so neat to me that Rick Collins was the mm-hmm. district superintendent at the time, and he called us when we were in Indiana, and he said, Chuck, there's a church here that is looking to candidate someone. Would you consider? And it was Trinity Temple, which is where I went as a teenager, where those formative years were, and where God dropped in my heart that I'm going to use you the rest of my life for ministry. So it was that church. Yeah. And so we candidated, and we felt great about it, and we accepted the invitation, and it was wonderful, and and then again I was continuing just to hunger deeper than I ever had to be. I was really at a good point as far as feeling very rooted and very grounded. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. We were there. It was we came in 2013. And we were in our I think 8th year. I have to go back and figure. But Chuck, he was 57, healthy, vibrant, energetic, hyper. Busy. Had a lot on his plate. Handled it beautifully. And was not on any meds, no heart trouble, just, healthy. And we had, plans to, do a lot more. But one day he just, without warning, he fell dead, of a heart mm-hmm. attack, mm-hmm. out of the blue. Mm-hmm. And so he and I were about to meet up to do something. I'd just gotten off work, so I called his phone to, just make sure we're on target to meet up where we were going to meet. And my daughter answered the phone, Cami, my younger daughter. And Cami said, "Mom, you need to come home right now." And that's where it had happened. She happened to be home early. He happened to come home early. They happened to meet up, which was very unusual. So she was there and able to call 911. And after a really long time, the EMTs brought him back. So we had a 9-day. Me and my two girls had 9 days with him in ICU. It was still, COVID restrictions had heightened again, so you could only take shifts. You could have 12-hour slots, the same person. So we were very stingy with that. It was just me and Macy and Cami taking turns, so we could be there constantly.
And what year was that?
That was 2021 in September. And I realized then, Lord, I see why you took me a little deeper. You really brought me to a place where I can withstand this, because it was a tsunami for me. I loved that man, and we worked beautifully together. We loved ministry together. We'd go home together. We'd go have fun together. We did everything together. And so this was hard. This was like, aside from taking one of my children, Lord, this is the hardest thing I could do. But I cannot, as I sit here, I cannot express to you how true it is that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Because he was. I have never felt his presence like I did at that time, and how he carried me and he carried my daughters. And probably the hardest for me, it's really hard watching this strong man that led me so well and led my girls so well to be helpless. It was so hard, but what was harder was to see my daughters hurt and them longing for God to bring their dad back. And we thought that was happening. We saw some wonderful miracles along the way. And but he coded about 4 times. It was a roller coaster. It really was. And but when we knew it was time, we got a phone call. It's time to make a decision. That was the hardest moment, to look at my daughters and say, we got to make a decision. And but the strength that came in that room, the power of the Lord, His presence was so real. And just, all the things he had preached and he had instilled in them, I saw it. I saw their pain, but I saw their strength. And I'm, to this day, I've got to say, I'm so proud of those 2 girls. Just watching them gave me strength as well. The Lord knew I needed them. He knew I needed those girls. And so I'm just amazed at how close he was. When you're crushed in spirit, I was crushed. I was. My heart was shattered. Yet I never doubted. I never questioned God. I hear, I've walked with people. I've walked with people through all kinds of hurt, all kinds of situations, through grief. And sometimes they curse God, and I'm like, God can handle that. He can handle your humanness. It's okay. But I never felt I could curse him. I never could. I'm like, where else would I go? You are the only strength. You are the only peace I have. And all I could do was just thank him. And it's funny, I've talked to other widows, and especially older widows that are older than me, and we attest to the same thing, that there's a sense of gratitude, and I cannot explain it. But even those 9 days, just at times I'd just go walk the ICU halls, and I would, Brandon Lake's song had just come out, gratitude, and I would sing it, and then CeCe Winans' song, Goodness of God. Those 2 songs just, they carried me, because I truly believe that. I saw the goodness of God even when it was most difficult, when it didn't make sense, when like, God, why are you, this man is effective for the kingdom. Why not take a scoundrel?
Yeah.
Why him?
Yeah.
He's so effective.
Yeah.
But the whole time I knew, no, God, you are good. There's a reason.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. I was thinking, like the song CC Wine's Goodness of God. Sometimes we'll do it, at Evangel at church where I'm at, and I think back. I'm like, I remember standing with Chuck G singing that song and fully believing, in the goodness of God. And I can also stand here without him alone. God having taken him home, and I can still say, God, you are good. I can't help but bask in the goodness of God because he's been faithful all my life.
Right.
Even when he took, the love of my life, he's been good to me. He's good to my girls. And I know that goodness is going on to my grandkids. Yeah. And something that was just beautiful, God gives the most beautiful gifts is that my grandson was only 2 when this happened. And it's so amazing that Griff has his mannerisms. Like, he could not have watched these.
Right.
He couldn't have witnessed these things.
Yeah.
But he has his mannerisms. He looks like him. He has a tender heart like him. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. I see your goodness. I see your gifts. And it's going to go to this grandbaby. I've got a grandbaby on the way. Yeah. My younger daughter's expecting a little boy. And I'm like, it's going to go to him too, Lord. I just trust that.
Yeah, that's so good. And just the strength of your daughters walking through that, and God laying that foundation. And there was a couple of things that you said. One of them was just how you were rooted, and that's Colossians, I think it's 6 and 7, somewhere around there. But it says being rooted and grounded in Christ. And the way that you withstand the storms, and that goes back to one of Jesus's parables, is you're built on the rock. And when the wind and the waves come, your house does not fall. Your house stands because you're rooted and you're grounded in Him. And the waves are going to come, the wind's going to come, the storm is going to come. But when you have that solid foundation, your leaves might rattle. Yeah. You might have a branch that kind of gets a little wilted. Yeah. But your tree is going to stand because you're rooted and grounded in your faith, because you've seen the goodness of God. You've seen Him answer prayer time and time again. You've seen Him move in your life, and that's something that you can hold to. It's an anchor for your soul.
I had a friend who once said, and I never forgot it, it was back when I think it was in Indonesia, the big tsunami. And I remember watching those. I still remember those images. They were horrific. And she said, those people were running for a structure. There was no structure. It was taken out, and they were running to a structure, and there was none to find. And I felt, that's kind of how I felt. I was firmly planted. Yeah, it knocked me down. Yeah. It took my breath away. Right. But I knew that I was planted, and I would come back up. Yeah. As soon as that it was over, and I just never forgot that. But how important it is to be truly not just knowing about God, not being a fan, not just pointing other people to Him, but your own relationship. Like, God, I'm willing to let you have it all. I trust you that much. Yeah,
that's so good.
You that much.
Yeah, Chuck. How about you when y'all were coming to the end of Wendy's life and just walking through that, and how you saw God's goodness to you and her in that time?
She had been hospitalized in Atlanta. We got back home. Her oncologist called us like a week later to check in on us, and they really expected Wendy to be up and about, and saw how Wendy was in the bed. We were doing a teledoc, and she said, "I want to see you tomorrow. Can you be here?" I said, "Absolutely, we'll be there." So we got in the car and drove up to Atlanta that Friday, and that's when she just brought us in, and she said, we have nothing. I can't do anything else. There's no more. If I put you on another chemo, which Wendy had already been on 3 or 4 different types of chemos, she had been on 2 different clinical trial drugs, and we had signed up for a third one when she started getting sick. And so the oncologist, and we loved her. She was a blessing. That was the reason we drove back and forth to Atlanta, was because of this oncologist. When we met her, there was other opportunities to be seen by somebody here in Columbus, but we drove to Atlanta. We met that young lady, and when we walked out of there, Wendy said, "That's who I want to be my doctor." And I'm thinking, well, she's 2 hours away, but that's what I was saying in my mind. What I said to Wendy was, if I don't care if it's Boise, Idaho, wherever you need to go for you to get well, I'll take you there, But we did. She was a blessing. And she was we were with her for like 6 years, so we really had a friendship with her, more than just a doctor. And she just brought us in, and she just says, the only thing I have to offer you is hospice. And so that was a tough ride home,
Did that kind of take the wind out of your sails a little bit?
Oh yeah, it was a sob fest all the way home. I was driving with one hand and holding her hand with the other hand. And I remember, as we were going down the interstate, and both of us drying our eyes and wiping our nose. She says, "What do you, how are you supposed to take it? When the doctor says go home and die." But as far as God's goodness, we had so many people. I had a friend. She was a friend of Wendy's that Wendy had worked with at Synovus, and they had moved off probably, 20 years ago, and we'd stayed close with them and vacationed with them, and I had called. Her name's Marisa. We call her Riri, and so. Once we had come home from the doctor with the, hospice is what it's going to be, Chris and Riri live in Arkansas. And so I knew it was going to be bad. It's going to be tough because they're so far away from us and they were so close to us. And so I called Chris and Riri and said, this is where we're at. And of course they were just, heartbroken. And So I said, maybe I can do, because Wendy was still pretty conscious most of the time then. I said, I'll get us I don't do social that much, FaceTime. I don't have an iPhone, I'm sorry. FaceTime is an iPhone, not Facebook. Yeah,
FaceTime.
We can do a FaceTime. I'll get the iPad out or something, then we'll do FaceTime. It'll be the four of us, right? We can do a FaceTime, and that way y'all can get to see Wendy. Maybe, be the last time, because you won't be able to travel. And so we didn't do that. And I just, so at that point, hospice had not, we were using hospice, they were coming to the house. But, so your question was the blessings that I saw. And so I tried to work a little bit, but anyway, Wendy was there in the bedroom, and I would sit there in the chair with her till about 8 o'clock at night. She was sedated, and then I would go to bed. And I got ready to go to bed. It was early. It was about 8 o'clock because she passed away in November, so the time had already changed. It was getting dark early, So I was like, go ahead and go to bed myself. And so before I went to bed, I said, you know what, I'm going to check my phone one last time, because I was keeping it on Do Not Disturb or something. And I picked it up, and it was a text message from Riri, And she just said, I had to come. She said, I knew if I asked you, you wouldn't let me come. And so she had driven, it was about 10 hours. So and she was out in the she was out in the driveway. I had already closed the garage doors, shut the lights for the night, and so she had gotten in the car because she didn't want to wake me up. She was going back to get a hotel room and try to come back the next day. And that was when I saw the text message. Was she was driving out of the neighborhood, and I grabbed the phone and I texted her. So she turned around and came back, and at that time I was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I was overwhelmed with trying to do everything. I was overwhelmed with trying to keep everybody informed. I was overwhelmed with trying to make sure my girls were taken care of. I was overwhelmed with trying to make sure Wendy had all the medicine she needed, that she was being fed, that she was being taken care of. I just didn't know I was overwhelmed because I've never done it before.
Right.
I was in way over my head. But Riri had some experience taking care of her mom, who had passed away from cancer. So she showed up. I always called her my angel from Arkansas because she showed up just in time.
There's not many of those around.
No.
Angel from Arkansas.
And so she stayed with me that first 6 or 7 days, and then she had to go back. And she just looked at me and says, "You can't do this by yourself." And I said, "You're absolutely right." She goes, "I'm not leaving here until you've got a plan in place. So you can go in there and you're going to have to call some people, and somebody else is going to have to be here, and they're going to have to help you." And so I went in and started getting on the phone, and I called the sweet ladies in my Sunday school class, and I started lining up people that could come in and help me. And my second angel came through the door. And that was Wendy's sister, Lisa Key. And she lives here. And she came in, and I was on the phone with some ladies from church. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm putting you down for Monday, right? I'm putting you on my spreadsheet. You can be here Monday and help me." And they're like, "Yeah." And so Lisa just came in, and she just gave me this look. And because Riri hadn't left yet. And Lisa came in, and she was talking to Riri. And Riri goes, "Yeah, I told Chuck to go in there and line up some people. He's going to need some help." And Lisa just came in there and just gave me the, hang up the phone. And so I hung up the phone. And we had that conversation. And she says, "I will be here 24/7 for as long as I need to be here." She was, And my mom. So, my mom would come and sit with me sometimes in the evening after Lisa left.
Yeah.
But, having those people, having those two ladies just come in, and, I couldn't have done it. I mean, I could have, I could have done it. But to have them there, and it allowed me to really love on Wendy, because they were taking care of the nursing duties, and it allowed me to do some work too.
Yeah.
But God just sent those people, and I could go on and on, I guess, about Evangel Church and all the people there, and the people from Synovus, and Total Systems, we were just blessed over and over by so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, my company blessed me, because we did Atlanta, we did Nashville, and it was never like, "When are you coming back? Did you get your work done?" It was always like, "Do what you need to do."
Yeah.
And Synovus was awesome, and they just took care of Wendy and Evangel as well.
Yeah. And that is, such a blessing that you had that freedom to work when you could and do what you needed to do. And that you have so many people around you. Again, community. The faith community is so important, and being the hands and feet of Jesus. That's so important. As Christians, we have to do that, and God's commanded us to do that, and we are servants. We're servants of each other as we're servants of Him. Talk about, God's goodness in the after. Like, what happens in the after, and how you see God moving, and just the next, because a lot of times we don't look, we think, well, there won't ever be something else that God has for me. What do you see in the next?
Well, I feel Chuck G had left a letter. Like he, years before he died, he had started a document, and he left it on the desktop of his laptop and said, it was titled, If I Die. And he had told me, I don't know, maybe a year before he died, he said, Sherry, I don't know that I've ever told you, but there's this document, showed me where it's at, and told me, if you need it, to open it, if something happened to him. And so it was the day before before his last day. I felt the Holy Spirit urging me, because all this time I'm thinking, God's going to heal him, He's going to restore him, I'm going to bring him home. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of rehab, we're going to need a heart transplant, we're going to need everything. Yeah. But I thought that's how God was going to heal him, so I wouldn't open it, and until the Holy Spirit directed me to start praying differently, and that's what I felt. I need to open this, and I opened it, and one of the things he said at the end, he said to enjoy life and serve God, and take care of my girls, and don't let anyone take advantage of you. Things like that. Things a husband would say. And I, that meant a lot to me, because I feel like I'm breathing, I have a pulse. That means God's not finished with me. Yeah, He's not. It was a little difficult because my world had changed. I mean, when you are, church was so important to me, and if you're a pastor's wife, and we were married 36 years, and that's all we did together, and so I'm like, okay, what now? What is serving look like now for me? Because it's still in me. I still have this desire, and I feel this call to serve somehow, and it looks different now, and it's in a way it's been liberating, in that I don't have the demands of church life, because it's grueling. The calendar is grueling, and I don't have that right now, but I just am finding ways to serve, and I love that God is showing me those ways, and my church, I landed at Evangel. I took a few months to go somewhere else to heal. I needed just some distance from people I knew. I needed to heal, and then God brought me home to Evangel and made that my home, and people have been wonderful. Pastor Paul, he gave me, pretty soon after, he gave me an opportunity to reach out to other ministers' wives, and then widowers as well who have lost their spouse, and it gave me a way to serve still. I'm still working, full-time job, and I serve it wherever I work. I feel that's my mission field at the time, wherever I'm at. But and then other opportunities came around to help serve, and, like with the women's events and things like that with the district. So God's opening doors and showing me ways to serve. I don't know what it will look like, but I'm happy. I'm content where I'm at, and I'm still looking if God has something else for me, what that might be. He has brought some wonderful people in my life. Some of the widows I have met have blessed me so much. And some of the stories we share, some of the things you wouldn't know. How does, suddenly losing a spouse affect the way you eat, your appetite, your, where you sit in church, like how it's some of the things I never considered that were so difficult. We share those things, and they get it, and so that's been great that I've had some time with other ministers' wives who are now widows, but God also brought someone very special who has walked through the same thing, and it may have looked different, but his was a lengthy sickness. Mine was like that. It was very quick. But it's so wonderful that he's brought someone, all the people he's brought into my life, but particularly Chuck Northington, and sharing, just sharing our grief. And it's so wonderful that you can, he can cry about Wendy, I cry about Chuck G, and that's okay. There's no, jealousy. I mean, we are seeing each other. I guess I should say that because not everybody knows that probably.
Yeah.
But I met him at church, and I see why God brought me to Evangel. I could have stayed where I was looking for healing, because there was a pastor I was with.
It was a wonderful church.
Rogers, and they're amazing, and they're still, I consider friends. And but there was a longing, one, to get closer to my house where I can be more involved in church, but also to be back in the Assemblies of God. That's all I've known. And but I didn't realize that God had someone who would help me, and so it has been wonderful to have somebody like him that continues to encourage my growth in the Lord, and I can encourage him, and it has been really wonderful. So yeah, whatever God has, obviously I put it all in his hands, what the future will look like. But I'm enjoying the journey. It's hard. It's still hard.
Yeah.
And, we talk about this. It's if we had our way, Wendy would still be here. Chuck G would still be here. Our children wouldn't be missing their parent, I do have, my daughter got married, and, after Chuck passed, and, the hardest thing for me was like, Lord, she's going to walk down the aisle alone, that bothered me. And I remember everybody was gathered at the wedding, and the director said, the two of you stay behind. I want you to put her in your car, and I want you to bring her. And I'm so glad we had that moment, because of all the, everything was chaotic, and then it was just she and I helped her in the back seat in all her wedding gown, in the back seat of the car. And before I shut the door, I'm like, I could feel. This sounds crazy, but I felt that her dad was right there. Maybe he was doing this. And I felt this most beautiful peace. And then the moment that the music played and that beautiful girl walked down the aisle, I saw strength. I saw, the Lord is walking with her, and I was glad that no one stood in that place. That the Lord stood in that place. He's fathering her well. He's fathering my Macy as well. Yeah. Even though they're grown and married, we need that daddy, you know. And God has been so good, to be that, not a substitute. He is. Yeah. He is their dad, and he is fathering them well. And so I appreciate, and I probably got off.
No, that's good. Keep going.
But I just start remembering these beautiful things, and his Paige is going to be getting married in June, and I trust that the Lord is going to be that substitute when he's not there, and there's no one that can take that place, but the Lord is going to be strong, and he's going to be there for her, and she's going to have a testimony too of the goodness of God.
That's right. And I think when I think about you, I think your identity was tied to Chuck, but I feel like God's given you a new identity. He's given you your own purpose. That's just yours. And I think that's what's so beautiful, is that when you're anchored in him, he is your identity. And when things come that shake your foundation, your identity is in him. And you realize that. You think, oh, my identity is here, and it's shaken. But then in the end, you realize, no, that's not. Like, that was a gift. But my identity is in my relationship with the Father, which he strengthened and helped you come to that before you needed that strength. And so that's the way God works. And I love seeing that, how he's working and moving in chapter 2. And, it's not the end of our story. He's writing more. He's got more, and just how he's unfolding what's next and just showing you what's next. And even for your girls, what's next in their life and how he is that glorious father, and just speaking to them. And Chuck, for you, how have you seen him moving in your life, not just with Sherry, but because that is another just beautiful part of just how he moves, and just how have you seen him in the next part?
Well, our society now is an anxious society, right? There's a lot of anxiety, and we can we can talk about the scourge of the earth, which is cell phones and social media, and all the anxiety and things, and a lot of the things that the young people that are dealing with today, but there is a lot of anxiety, and when you have two girls, right, and then they lost their mom, and trying to, once again, going back to one of my earlier statements about, just finding joy in the Lord. One of my praises and one of my joys is that they at least were adult age, college age. I'm like, Lord, bless them girls if they would not have had their mama when they were 10 and 12, and they would have had to rely upon me to raise them up through those ages. But Wendy got them through that, and she had them in college, and she had given them that direction in life. So that was a praise. But then there's also the anxiety that just comes with it's all on me now. Right, there was always being the dad, and then being two girls. I could always
go ask your mama.
About 95% of the time, it was you're a girl. You two are girls, and your mom is a girl. Therefore, y'all go have that conversation with your mom, right? And I got to ditch out and go fishing or hunting or something like that, and they, and Wendy loved that, right? I mean, that was she loved, being the go-to. And so there's that anxiety that comes with that. There's financial anxiety, right? It's so when you have two incomes that are inside of a house, and then you only have one income inside a house, and you're paying for college and things like that, and weddings, and but the Lord is just I can remember the early days after Wendy passed away, and that level of anxiety that I had with those kind of things. But he's taking care of me, and he's taking care of them, and he's just, it's like his thing is just give me, he just trust him, right? And part of trusting him. And I was talking, I don't know if I was talking to you or I was talking to one of my girls this morning, and I said, it's hard. I know we say we're supposed to put in our trust in the Lord, and then we just, let him take care of it. And a lot of times we go, okay, well, I'm going to pray about it, and I'm going to let him take care about it, but we don't really release it, right? We're still holding on to it. That's the hard part. Yeah. We can pray about something, but being able to pray about it and give it to God, and then just walk away from it, and then go, okay, I don't have to worry about that no more. Yeah. That's a special skill. Yeah. That's a special level of faith, and especially when it comes to, big items like your girls and your incomes and things like that. But that's how I've seen him, is that time after time, he's just provided for me. And one of the things is providing this relationship I have with Sherry, you know, and sending her and putting her in my pathway, you know, and having somebody that knows exactly what I'm going through, or knew exactly what I was going through, right?
Yeah.
That I could sit here and I knew what she was going through, you know, and just have that kind of relationship and friendship that we could share and understand each other's positions, and being able to be that shoulder to lean on, and be that friend and the companionship, and you know, and I tell, you know, it's really been, that's one of the things that's taken that anxiety away, you know, because here's another thing: when you're 58 years old or 57 years old and you lose a spouse, you don't always know that there's going to be somebody else out there. You know, when Wendy married me, I had a head full of hair, right? So then you start going, well, now I don't have the hair anymore. So you like,
my granddaddy would always say bald is beautiful, though.
It's beautiful. But yeah, there's that part too. So just Sherry's just been a blessing as well.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing, is that we have such a nobody would believe us, but you know, it's like she just said. It's like what do you and Sherry like to talk about? And I was like, well, I don't know. We spend a lot of time talking about Chuck G, and we spend a lot of time talking about Wendy, right?
Yeah.
Because we just have such sweet memories. And I love Chuck G, even though I never met him.
Yeah.
Because she wouldn't be who she is without Chuck G, right?
Yeah.
Cammie and Macy wouldn't be, her daughters wouldn't be. I mean, he poured into their lives. And so I just feel like, you know, I'm blessed by his leadership and his faith and the way he poured into their lives.
Yeah.
But yeah, God's just provided, you know, those are the different anxieties that I've sort of walked through over the past maybe year and a half now, that he's just proven to me, and my walk with him has gone so much deeper. You know, it was like, it certainly got deeper whenever Wendy was sick. And then after she was gone, it certainly got to be deeper and deeper. And it's just one of those, you know, there's some people, I think Sherry alluded to it, you know, there's a certain, there's some people that get angry with God, right? You know, how can you do this, and how can you take this mother from these two girls, and those kind of things. But it's all about looking and seeing the blessings. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I got to be married to this beautiful woman for 35 years, and she gave me two beautiful daughters, and she was just the hardest worker in the world, and she just left this great legacy, you know, behind. And you know, how can I feel cheated, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, no, I was blessed. I wasn't cheated.
Right.
You know? Wendy's fine. You know, I mean, you know, there's a certain aspect of you that goes, oh, well, you know, she'll never get to see a grandchild, right?
Well, she will.
She will. But the other thing too is that we don't. Our limited minds cannot understand the glory of heaven.
Yeah.
And it's you know, you think water's great until you finally taste Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's sort of what it is.
Yeah.
It's that all we've ever tasted is water. I don't understand the Kool-Aid of heaven.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you say, oh, she's never, you know, a grandbaby here, you know, on earth. It's one of those kind of things, like, you don't understand the glory of heaven.
Right.
You don't understand what she's experiencing. The love that you think a grandmother can have for a grandchild
doesn't compare
to what she's experiencing.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, you know, and it's just, you just remind yourself of those things. And sometimes, you know, not everybody has the same level of faith you do. And they're not trying to bring you down. They just think, you know, you're sad, and so they want to be sad with you. And they want to, and it's like, no, Wendy is, you know, she's where we all want to be.
Right. She just got there a little quicker.
Got there a little quicker. I used to tell her that. I was like, we sort of knew that her illness was going to be terminal, and and I was like, in the grand schemes of eternity, if your life is like a wisp of smoke, I'm like, I'm coming in right behind you.
Yeah.
I'm 58,
Yeah.
It's not going to be that much longer, I'm past the halfway point, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, God's just, He's just provided over and over, in many ways.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And, I think y'all just both shared some powerful truths, and things that people can hold to. Grief is a journey, and it's something that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you're still going to walk through grief. It's never going to be an ended journey until you step foot into heaven. And that's when your grief is going to end. Mm-hmm. But I think recognizing the sweet moments of God through grief, relying on His strength to get you through the hard days, and, just knowing that your faith is anchored in Him, that no matter what comes, no matter what waves of grief wash over you, that He will say peace in a moment, and that, your ship won't rock. It might rock for a little bit, and like you said, your foundation might be a little shaken, and grief may still wash over you. But in time, God is going to say, "Okay, we're going to have some peace," and He'll give you peace through that grief process. Right. But then He'll give you days where it doesn't overtake you, and you're able to enjoy, the chapter 2 He's bringing your way and what He's doing through you, and just realizing, God is good no matter what we go through.
That's right.
We just have to look for the goodness. Amen. And look for where we see Him, and then drive a stake in the ground, because in the next moment, in the next thing you go through, that stake in the ground is what's going to anchor you again. And, I think just realizing how you can look back and in those dark moments, you can still see the light of God. Mm-hmm. And that gives other people hope.
I was going to say one other thing, just talking about that. One of the things that I did, talking about the way the Lord provides, one of the things I did, when Wendy passed away on November 3rd, I think probably by the first week of December, I was in Grief Share.
Yeah.
And I showed up for Grief Share, and when we would sit in a circle, and they were like, "Well, tell us your story, right?" And I was like, "Well, my wife passed away in November," and they were like, "November of 2023," and I was like, "No, November of 2024," and they were like, "That was 4 weeks ago," and I was like, "Why would I wait, right? Why would I wait to come around?" But and then there was the blessing of Grief Share was this for me, was there were so many people there that there was a lady there. She said, "You're here in 4 weeks after your wife died," and I said, "Yes." She says, "It's taken me 10 years to get here."
Wow.
And I was like, and so you would hear those other stories, and I was like, and people that like Sherry and Chuck G, I thought it was a blessing, because I thought people that lost their spouse or lost a loved one quickly without any kind of warning, right? And I was like, I had plenty of warning. I got to say everything I wanted to say. Of course, there's people say, "Yeah, but yours, you sort of had to watch it go over 5 or 6 years." But the thing that you were saying, it wasn't so much about that. But I remember Grief Share. The one thing I remember from Grief Share, and this was when there was a man on a video up there, and every video they would have on Grief Share, they would talk about, Sandra lost a husband to, heart attack, or Bob lost a wife to, breast cancer, or something like that. And there was a guy on that video for Grief Share, and his thing said, lost a wife and 3 kids in a flood. And I had to stop and shake. I was like, I almost want to say, can y'all back that up? Because I didn't always read the subtitles on everybody's name. And I looked at the person I said, did that thing say that man lost a wife and 3 kids in a flood? And I'm thinking, Lord, I mean, once again, you talk about my pain, and I'm thinking about how does my pain compare to the pain of losing, not only he lost a spouse and 3 children, yet he's on a video for Grief Share talking to me about how to get through my grief.
Yeah.
So it's just one
powerful.
of those things, like, you just put your hands in the air and say, thank you, Lord,
Right.
I didn't lose my wife in a tragedy like that. I mean, cancer's a tragedy, but, losing somebody in a flood unexpectedly, especially as a husband,
Yeah.
you're supposed to be the protector of the family, and now your wife's gone in a flood, and I was just like, thank you, Lord. Thank you for everything, and thank you for, so, yeah.
Yeah. That's powerful, And you wouldn't have known this, but you said Sandra losing a husband to a heart attack. That was my mom.
Oh, and I don't know if I just made the name up.
I know.
Oh.
Yeah. My mom is Sandra, and my dad died of a massive heart attack.
Really?
It was 19 years ago.
How about that?
Yeah. And, just seeing her walk through that, and, just how solid her faith was, and, you're just seeing how God has moved in her chapter too. And she did Grief Share. I don't remember how long after my dad passed away she went through Grief Share. I want to say it was a few years. It may have even been, no, it was a few years. But then she was teaching Grief Share.
Oh, yeah.
And my stepdad was in her Grief Share class.
How about that?
He had just lost his fiance to cancer.
Wow.
And he had been her caregiver.
Yeah.
And he was in her Grief Share class, and they became friends, and they've been married almost 10 years.
Wow,
So,
cool.
yeah. And so, just how, God just blesses, even when we're not looking. Yeah. So, well, do y'all have anything else that's on your heart? Any other thoughts?
I just want to encourage any others that are walking through losing a spouse or a child, or just to lean on the Lord, and find your footing. If it caught you at a time that you weren't grounded, it's not too late to root yourself deeply in the Lord, in the Word. Let Him carry you. But as long as we're here, God has something for us. He wants to use us. He wants to bless us. And so I just want to encourage any others out there. And when he mentioned chapter 2, this is chapter 2. I'll be 60 actually in March. And yeah, this is my short window now. So my prayer, and the scripture that's been dear to my heart for many years is Lord, give me a heart of wisdom, so that, teach me to number my days so that I may gain a heart of wisdom. Yes. And I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to number my days, not, like every day is important, and I want to make the most of every day.
Yeah.
I'm asking the Lord to help me do that.
Yeah. So, as you count your days, making your days count.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything from you, Chuck? Any part words?
The most important thing that I could take away from this is that I could offer to anyone that was going through the loss of a spouse. The easiest thing to do is to just lock the doors and stay inside and woe is me. And I knew I had quite a bit of time once Wendy's illness was progressing, and once her cancer had metastasized into her lungs and her bones and her brain. And I had some time to sort of plan what I was going to do after. And one of the things that I knew I wasn't going to do was I was not going to stay at home, and I was not going to stay locked up, and I was not going to stay secluded. And I was going to, I told some friends of mine, I said, I will accept every invitation that I receive, right? I don't care if somebody's offering, hey, we're going out to we're taking the trash out, whatever, you want to come over and help us, I'd be like, I'm coming, I'll be here, Yeah. And I think that was good. It's mentally, it's good. Yeah. Because you just, you need to be around people. And the other thing too is that I tell people, nobody cares about your happiness the way as you care about your happiness, right? Your happiness is more important to you than it is to anybody else, right? And so you just have to take an active role in that. And you can't sit back and just wait for, your healing is your responsibility. And part of, when I say it's your responsibility, that is your, it's your responsibility through your faith and through your relationship with Jesus. It's your responsibility through especially if you're in a church, right? You have so many people that just want to love on you, and they want to do anything they can. Speaking for our church, I know that's the case. Yeah. And so you have those opportunities, whether it's friends or church members or fellowship, I would have never met this beautiful lady if I would have just stayed secluded in a home, right? And not been out, at least attending church and services and those kind of things. So that's the thing, is that I'm not saying it's easy. That was the thing I saw in Grief Share. People were like, how can you be here, 5 weeks after your wife passed away? I was still at home. And I said, but, I need to get my, I need my medicine now, right? I mean, I've got a prescription here. It's Grief Share. Yeah. Why do I want to wait 6 and 7 months? Why do I want the pain to grow so great and then come to Grief Share? Yeah. Why not go ahead and do it now? Yeah. So just take an active participation in your own recovery, I think is the biggest thing I would say.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, thank you both for coming and sharing your story. And I just know it's going to touch people and just help so many people, just whether they're dealing with grief or just life change or whatever. Like, you've both shared incredible wisdom. And so I just thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having us. We enjoyed it.
Yeah. You're a blessing. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Hope, Health, and Healing. I know that over the last 2 weeks, you have gleaned such wisdom from Chuck and Sherry. And I know that no matter where you find yourself in your faith journey, they have given you some words of wisdom and inspiration to continue on in your journey of faith. Join us next week as my friend Kelly Lentz shares her story of faith, what it's looked like for her as an actress of 30 plus years in Hollywood, as she has navigated through that as a Christian, holding tight to her faith and sharing Jesus with others. She also shares a new adventure with us where she has written a screenplay based on a true life story of a family who was gifted with a daughter with Down syndrome, and their journey of really just empowering her to live life to the fullest. Kelly also shares how you can be involved in the filming process and support of this movie. Join us next week on Hope, Health, and Healing for episode 40. And be sure to like and comment our show. And if you have not already followed it, follow us today and share this with your friends and family. Thanks and have a great day.